Hey guys, so welcome back to the Fullstack Web Development Part 4. Alright, so last time we left off by understanding everything inside our head tag in our HTML document. And so this time let's just go a little in depth as to what actually meta tags are used for. Alright, so meta tags actually help search engines like Google to effectively rank your website. Alright, and accurately display it accordingly. And this whole process is known as search engine optimization. So what exactly do I mean by search engine optimization? Alright, so let's just go ahead onto our Chrome and actually search for SEO. And it would actually give you a basic definition. Alright, so it is actually the process of making your websites better for the search engines. Alright, so what happens is that let's say I just search for SEO. Alright, let's just scroll down. So this is the actual first website that is available for me to click on. Alright, and this is the actual search engine optimization because this website actually ranked better than the others. Alright, and that's why I'm seeing this as a #1 result for SEO. Alright, and all the other websites are ranked accordingly. So let's say for instance our first website is ranked 1, so these are 2, 3, 4 and so on. So now if we go ahead and click onto this first website, so this is what the website looks like. Now the question that immediately comes to mind is that why did this rank better than the others? Because obviously it had some meta tags that helped it to achieve a higher rank. So if you actually go ahead, right click on the website and hit on view page source, so you would actually see all the HTML code that's written for this specific website. Alright, and now as you can see that the amount of meta tags that this website is actually using that helped it rank better on Google Chrome. So as you can see, there are different types of meta tags with different properties. Alright. So, I mean, as you can see here that for this website, our SEO website, so this is actually a description meta tag. So this is what you could define for your website as a meta tag and it would show up right here. So you could say meta tag property description and add a description. And this is what the description would look like once your website is actually deployed. Alright, so these are the different things that you can do with meta tags. Alright, so let's go ahead and actually define some new meta tags for our own website. Alright, so I've actually added 3 new meta tags to our website. Alright, so the first meta tag is description that we just saw. So you can actually write meta and write a property name as description. So this would actually mean that this is a description meta tag. And then in content, you can actually provide what the description would actually look like. Alright, so I have just written learn full stack web dev here. And that's what I want my description to be. Then moving on to the next meta tag, that's the keywords meta tag. Alright, so what keywords do you actually want to be attached with your website? Alright, so these are the keywords that actual users would search for. Alright, so let's say a user actually wants to learn HTML. So he would actually type HTML and your website should actually show up. So you would actually attach an HTML keyword. And similarly, you can add various keywords. So I've just added CSS, JS and full stack course. So these are the keywords that I want attached with my website. Alright, so let's move on to the third meta tag, and this is quite frequently used, so its name is robots. And it contains contents no index and no follow. Alright, so if you write no index and no follow, so it actually tells the search engine to neither index your pages and nor to follow the links inside your page. So this is what people write to not appear in the search engine. Alright. But obviously we want to appear in the search engine. So instead of no index and no follow, we are actually going to write index and follow. Alright, so this would mean that the search engine would actually index your pages and actually follow the links that you have specified inside your website. Alright, to give it a better ranking amongst the other pages. Alright, so it would mean better SEO performance. Alright, so that's all you need to know about meta tags. Alright, they help in SEO and make search engines actually crawl your website for information and actually give it a better ranking. Alright, so now that we are actually done with meta tags and we know what is a title tag, let's go ahead and actually add a link tag with which you can actually link your CSS. So if you are on VS Code, you can actually go ahead and write link and it would actually give you various suggestions. Alright, so different link tags for different stuff. Alright. But we actually want to link our CSS. So we actually would go ahead on CSS, hit tab, and this would actually give you the link tag to actually link your own CSS. And if you are not on VS Code, that means you won't be getting these suggestions. So you can go ahead and open up a new tag and name it as link. Alright, and add a first attribute rel. Alright, this means relationship. Alright, so what's the relationship of this link tab is going to be? So for us, this is actually going to be a style sheet, alright, because we are actually going to attach a cascading style sheet to it. All right. So the relationship is going to be style sheet, and then we are actually going to provide an href. All right. So in the href attribute, you actually specify the actual address, or should I say the actual location of the CSS file. All right. So for us, this is actually in the same directory, so we don't need to add anything else, but just change the name of style.css to codecove.css. And you can name it whatever you want. According to that, you can actually name your CSS. So now our codecove.css, which is right here, is actually linked with our HTML. All right. And don't forget to just save the file. Otherwise, the changes won't be saved. And if you would go ahead and write something in the CSS, it won't actually get reflected. All right. So now we have linked our CSS by specifying the location of it in our specific directory. But if we look at the link attribute here, that is href, actually you can also specify a URL here. All right, so you can actually use a CSS that is predefined by someone else and is actually hosted up somewhere in some server, and you could actually grab the URL of that CSS and actually provide here in the href tag, and that CSS would actually get reflected. And in the future, we are actually going to import CSS like that when we actually are working with, let's say, Bootstrap. All right, and don't worry about Bootstrap, you will get introduced to it in time. So now that we have our CSS attached, let's go ahead and also attach our JS. All right, so you would say that go ahead, write another link tag and attach JS to it. Well, actually JS is not attached to HTML with the help of link tag. All right, we attach JS with the help of script tag. So go ahead and write script, and VS Code would actually give you two suggestions. All right, so a vanilla script tag and a script tag with SRC. So we want a script tag with SRC, and in SRC we are actually going to specify the location of our JS file. So for me it is going to be codecove.js, and now we have actually linked our JS file to our HTML file. Now, what does SRC stand for? It actually stands for source. All right, so what's the source from where this JS script is coming from? All right, so for us, it's going to be codecove.js. All right, so now that we have a complete understanding of what's currently on our screen, let's go ahead and actually introduce some actual HTML tags inside of our body. All right, so I mean, currently we already have written chilling at the Cove. All right, so we actually don't specify HTML like this. So whenever you need to add something to your viewport, you always introduce a new tag. All right, so let me introduce you to a heading tag. All right, so the tag is called h1. So this is a heading tag, and here we are actually going to specify chilling at the Cove. So now that we have specified a heading tag, we are actually going to save our script and move on to our live server. And as you can see, that chilling at the Cove is actually visible, and it's actually visible as a heading. All right, so previously it was a little bit small and a different font, and now it's a bigger font and in bold. And this is what a heading tag looks like. All right, and there are, I guess, 6 different heading tags. All right, so this is h1, and you can actually specify 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now I've specified 6 types of heading tags, and now let's go ahead onto a live server, and you can see 6 types of headings. All right. So as you move on the number line, the heading actually reduces in size. All right, so this is h1, this is h2, h3, h4, and so on. So this is what different heading tags look like. So now that we know how to write a heading, now let's go ahead and check out how to write a paragraph. All right, so a paragraph is actually a p tag. And I guess is really well understood what a paragraph actually looks like. All right, so I would just go ahead and give it some temporary text. All right, so when you are actually developing a website, every time you would need temporary text to display. All right, because you need to see how your data would actually look like. And when you are actually starting to develop your website, you actually don't have a backend. All right, so you don't have predefined data that you could actually represent. All right, so for this, you can actually write lorem and you can hit tab, and this would actually give you a temporary text. All right. So let's see how this temporary text actually looks like. So as you can see, this is what a paragraph looks like. All right, and we actually didn't specify that much of written data, so it was actually one single line. All right, so let's go ahead and define a little bit more data. So you can actually write lorem and define a number after it, and that would actually mean that how many words do you want to specify with this tag. All right, so let's say lorem, and I want 100 words, and then I would hit tab, and you would actually see that I'm actually provided with 100 words. So now let's save this and go ahead onto a live server. So as you can see that our paragraph is actually getting wrapped once it reaches the end of our viewport. Alright, so now we actually know what a heading tag is and what a paragraph tag is. Alright, so now there is something that I want you guys to know about. There are n number of HTML tags. Alright, and it is absolutely not necessary to know each one of them. Alright, so there are different tags to do different kinds of things, such as, bold the text or make the text in italic or emphasize the text and so on. But the thing is that they are not actually that frequently used, or should I say never used. Alright, because once you are actually introduced to CSS, all these tags actually have no meaning. Alright, because you can actually grab a specific area and actually style it accordingly with the help of CSS. Alright, so you don't need to specify different kinds of tags for different things. Alright, so you can just go ahead and target a specific area with the help of IDs and classes that I would teach in future videos. And with the help of CSS, you can actually style them to be bold, italic, or anything that you want. Or hell, even animate them. Alright, so my advice to you is to not waste time on learning each and every tag that is ever been specified in HTML. But just learn the ones that are most frequently used. Alright, so these are the ones that are going to be most frequently used. So let's just go ahead and check out some more tags that are often used. Alright, so we are actually done with heading, we are actually done with paragraphs. So let's go ahead and actually add an image to our website. Alright, so here I have specified an image tag, and its first attribute is going to be the source. Alright, so where the image is actually coming from. And I actually have brought an image of my own that I created in my own free time, and I have actually introduced it into my working directory. And you can obviously bring one of your own. Alright, you could obviously click a selfie and actually import it right here. So mine is actually in .svg, yours could be anything, alright, .jpg or any other extension. So don't worry about it, alright. So just import the image here and just write it inside of source. Alright, so for me, I've just named it as image.svg. So inside of source, I'm going to write image.svg. And if you actually don't want to import an image inside your working directory, you could actually go to a free website where you can get a free image and grab the link and actually paste the link inside of source, and it would actually get displayed. So now that we have our image role in, so let's go ahead and check out the next attribute, which is the alternate attribute. Alright, so let's say that there is something wrong with the link of the image. Alright, so let's say, or there is something wrong with the source of the image. Alright, so let's say you did some typo in writing the actual name of the image. So the thing is that the HTML won't actually be able to find that specific file and display it. So instead of displaying your image, it would actually display the alternate message that you could specify. Alright, so for me, I've actually written here, oops, we weren't able to find your image, so let's say oops. So alright, now that we have our image specified, let's go ahead and save the file and jump on to a live server. So you can actually see the image below the paragraph where we actually specified the image tag, and your image would actually display here. So I actually had to change the image format to PNG because SVG was actually too large to load. So that was a little bit of a problem. So anyways, so now after conversion, I've actually named it as 1.png. You can actually name it anything that you want. So what I would actually do is that now let's break the source. Alright, so let's say qwe1 qwe.png. So there is no such file as 1 qwe.png. So now if you actually go ahead to your live server, you would actually see the alt text. Alright, so it would actually see that the image is broken, and it would actually say, oops, the image is actually broken and we cannot actually find it. And you can actually freely go ahead and specify the message accordingly for yourself. So now we know how to add images to our website. Alright, so now let's go ahead and check out how to add links to our website. So links are actually added to your website by a tag called anchor tag, and it is actually just written as A. Alright, so you can actually hit A tab, and then it would ask for an href, that is a URL where you want this link to lead. Alright, so let's just go ahead and find a link where this could actually lead to. Alright, so now I've actually specified a link inside our href attribute. And inside our anchor tag, you can actually write something here. Alright, and this would actually appear as that blue text on which you can click on. Alright, So I have written sale here, and this would actually appear as the actual tag on which you can click on to move on to that website. And for now, I would just comment out the image tag because it's actually too big and we actually don't want to see it every time that we go on to the live server. So alright, now that we are on our live server, we can actually see sale here. Alright, and this would actually appear as the blue button, alright, or the blue link on which you can click on to access that specific link which is specified inside our HTML. Alright, so if I click sale here, so this would actually take you to Steam, alright. The link that was specified by me there was actually the Steam homepage. And there is a sale going on here, so I just wrote sale here, alright. So did you notice something? That when we clicked sale here, it actually loaded the link on our website, that is on this particular tab, alright. So the thing is that when you actually create a website for a real world environment, you actually don't want the user to leave your website, alright. So you don't want him to hop onto the link by closing your website. You want it to be open on the specific tab and the link could go ahead and open onto a next new tab. Alright. So in order to do that, you can actually specify a target attribute inside the anchor tag. So you can actually write target and then specify it as underscore blank. Alright. And this would actually open the link up in a new tab. Alright, so now if we go ahead onto a live server and click sale here, it would actually open a new tab. Alright, so now we know a heading tag, a paragraph tag, an image tag, and an anchor tag. Alright, so what other people would actually advise you to do is actually learn to make tables. Alright, so and there are specific tags for it inside HTML. Alright, the thing is that I would advise you not to learn tables. Alright. Because I would like you to directly get introduced to Flexbox. Alright. Because once you actually get the hang of Flexbox, you would not need anything else. Because you would be able to achieve any design with the help of Flexbox. Alright. So I personally would not be teaching tables. Alright. So tables, rows, columns, they are simply out of the window. Alright. So I am not teaching tables here. Alright, so right now I would just introduce you to some input tags after this, and then I would actually introduce you to CSS, where we would actually move on to learn Flexbox. Alright, so let's go ahead and introduce some input tags in our HTML. Alright, so now what you guys can go ahead and do is actually write input. Alright, and VS Code would actually give you all the suggestions that are available for an input tag. Alright, so you can actually input as a button. Alright, you can actually input as a checkbox, a date and time, email, file, or an image. Alright, a month, number, password, anything. Alright, so there are various types of attributes that you can attach to an input tag. Alright, so for now, I would actually just write a simple input with a type text. And you know what, let's go ahead and add some more input tags. Alright, so just write input and actually check out the other input tags and how they actually look like. So I have actually taken type as text, checkbox, color, date, time, file, password, and radio. Alright, and I would advise you to go ahead and check out all the others for yourself. So now let's go ahead, save the file and jump on to a live server. Alright, so when you actually go onto your live server, you would actually see that all the input tags are actually cluttered with one another. And this is actually happening because an input tag is actually an inline element. Alright, and I would actually talk more about inline and block elements in the next video. So for now, what we would do to actually see them on different lines is add a BR tag, alright, which helps us to break lines. Alright, so as you can see here, I've actually added BR tags. Alright, so this is actually used to break lines. Alright, or you could actually call it short for break. So you can actually write BR, and instead of opening and closing it, you can actually write a one-liner tag by just simply writing BR and slashing it out in the end. Alright, so that's how you specify without opening and closing a tag in one single tag. Alright, I hope you are getting what I'm saying. So I have introduced BR tags between all the input tags. Alright, so now they would break line with one another and appear one top of the other. So now if we go ahead onto a live server, you can actually see that they are now on new lines. Alright, so the first input tag was actually a text input tag in which you can actually input anything. Alright, so you can actually input letters, numbers, anything. Alright, special characters or anything. It's just simple text. Alright. And the next one was a checkbox in which you can actually check it and uncheck it. And you could also have multiple checkboxes. And you know what? Let's go ahead and add some multiple checkboxes. So let's say we have one checkbox here. Let's duplicate this twice. So that would make 3 checkboxes. So you can have different kinds of checkboxes. You could check all 3, you could uncheck, and that's what a checkbox is. Alright. And next up is a color input tag. So what kind of color do you want to be? So this would open a whole RGB menu in which you can actually go ahead and select a color, and that would actually be taken as an input. Then the next tag is actually the date tag. Alright, so I actually just changed it. Alright, so now this is what it actually looks like, input type date. Alright, so this is actually the date input tag, alright, in which you can actually click on it and actually pick a date that you want to be chosen as input. Alright, so that's what an input date looks like. Then there is the choose file input, on which when you click on choose, it would open up the whole file menu for you, on which you can load a file from your PC. Alright, so if you actually have some code written for it and an actual server with a backend and a database, you can actually select a file and upload it onto your cloud server. Alright, and next up is password. Alright, so if you actually write something in here, you won't actually be able to see it, alright, because it's a password. And finally, we have radio buttons. Now radio buttons work differently than checkboxes. Alright, so how I have specified my radio buttons is that I have taken 2 radio buttons, so 2 input tags with type radio, and I have named them both 1 and given them different IDs. Alright, so what this would achieve me is that once I click on one radio button, it's all fine, but when I click on the second button, it would actually unselect the first one. Alright, and if I go ahead and change the name of the second one, that is, I name the second one as 2, then you can actually go ahead and select both the radio buttons. Alright, so this is what you can actually achieve with the same name. So if 2 radio buttons have the same name, you can only select one of them at once. Alright, so let's just say I duplicate the 2. Alright, so what this would do is that I can select the first one, alright, and I can select the second one, alright, because they have different names. But the third one actually has the same name as the second one. So if I select that one, it would actually unselect the second one. Alright, so that's how radio buttons work. And now I would advise you to go ahead and check out the other input tags, alright, that were actually recommended to us by VS Code. So go ahead, check them out and how they look like. But these are the ones that are most often used. So that actually wraps up more or less the all the required HTML tags that you want to learn in order to develop a beginner level website. Alright, or should I say, or not even beginner, actually you would be able to build an intermediate and advanced with just these tags. Alright, so in the next video, we are actually going to go through the difference between inline elements and block elements. Alright, and there I am actually going to introduce a new tag. Alright, and that's the holy grail of all tags. Alright, you can use it as almost any other tag that's out there. Alright, because it's fully customizable. So all that we are actually going to do in the next one. So until then, keep chilling at the Code Cove.